Hello and a very good morning from me. Hopefully the noises coming from the traffic won't be too bad this morning, because sometimes I struggle against the volume, but you know, when we're low tech, this is, if you like, the best that we can do. Right, so this isn't the video that I intended to make this morning. I will probably do that one on the return leg, but this is the one that I need to do. And when I say need, it's not like, oh, I must do it. I go with the flow. And last night before I went to bed, I came across an article with Simon Cowell and Piers strolling along the streets of London, I believe, yes. And, you know, these two regular guys, if you didn't know who they were, you wouldn't give them a second glance kind of thing. So, I watched, the first thing that I watched this morning is I go through, check my notifications, and the first thing I watched, or rather the first item that came up, was a video about Simon Cowell and Piers Morgan. Now, I thought it was quite interesting because I've had dealings in my time with both Simon and Piers. But I am the type of person, it doesn't matter what other people say, I don't pay, not so much that I don't pay attention. If I have experienced someone, I go by virtue of what I've experienced. Because, as they say, if you know your Bible, out of the abundance of the heart, that's where actions come from. So I will detail my dealings with both men who I've defended. I've criticized them, but I've also defended them. So I've criticized them where criticism is due. So for example, with Piers, I don't support anything to do with coronavirus vaccines, masks or anything. I have not worn a mask since day one of coronavirus lockdown. I just go about my business as normal. Right, so I don't support anything that he says about that, but we won't let that come in the way of what I'm going to say. Right, so we're going back to the early 2000s when Glenn Hoddle was England manager, and he was sacked because of his, if you like, religious views. And I took it upon myself, you know, because I'm one with very strong opinions. If you watch my videos, if you read my Facebook posts, I have very strong views and I don't take them back. So I wrote a letter. I chose, Piers Morgan was at the Mirror at the time, and it wasn't so much that I said, right, I'm going to write to the newspaper and just pick one randomly. I chose the Mirror because I felt that they, for what it was, they would perhaps publish the letter. So it was a letter in support of Glenn Hoddle, because, you know, we're in this cancel culture now. Cancel culture isn't new, because we're going back more than 20 years now, or I don't know, yeah, it was at the turn of the century anyway, so I'll call it almost 20 years. But so Glenn Hoddle was cancel culture, cancelled, if you like. So I wrote this, I don't like to bring emotions into it, but it's the same like when I wrote the book. It's usually I've got a bee in my bonnet and I've got something to say kind of attitude I walk around with. So I wrote this letter to the sports department at the Mirror, and in support of Glen Hoddle. And what was my surprise, I received a reply from Piers Morgan, who was editor of the Mirror at the time. I received a message. Bear in mind, I didn't write the letter to Piers Morgan. I wrote it to the Mirror, to the sports department, and sports news department. And for him to write back to me, he wrote back and he said he thought it was a really nice letter, and he was going to pass it on to Glen Hoddle because he thought it would cheer him up. Now, you can't be a nasty piece of work to do something like that. Not just that, because he could have passed the letter on and not taken the time to get in contact with me about it, right? So nobody's going to tell me that Piers Morgan is not a decent person. He's got something about his character that tells me that there's some level of decency there, irrespective of whether I support his views on politics, I'm not into politics, on things that he takes a strong opinion about. Irrespective of everything, that's what he did. And I am nobody. And the fact that he took it upon himself to not just handle the letter himself, but to pass it to let me know that he was going to give it to Glen Hoddle because he thought it would cheer him up. Sorry, I keep obscuring my face. Such is my unprofessionality. The fact that he did that 20 years later, that is the experience I have of Piers Morgan, and I'm sticking to it. There are conversations that we can have about this. We can say, yeah, but anybody can do good works. I am afraid to say I don't actually think, if somebody is pretending to be a good person, you can only pretend so far. It wouldn't extend to writing a letter to the person who sent the letter. If you were going to pass it on, you just do that. And you wouldn't have the time or the inclination to get in touch with the person who wrote the letter. That is my experience of Piers Morgan, and that will live with me forever as an act of a decent person. Now, my experience with Simon Cowell is slightly funnier, and I hope, should he ever watch the video, he will see the funny side. So I was given an opportunity to audition for X Factor 2016. There's more that I can say, but to keep to the point, that's something I can explore at some other point as regards my dealings with talent shows and so forth, and karaoke. So I won't go into the details of how I came to meet Simon Cowell in 2016, but I will say that I manipulated my way into the situation, not because I wanted to be on X Factor or to win X Factor. It was because I wanted to meet Simon Cowell for networking purposes, for future network purposes at that. And people would say, what do you mean? And Simon Cowell is this big important person. Why would he want to network with you? You never know. But having been given the opportunity, I ended up meeting Simon Cowell. Now, I've done reality TV before, and I know that even though I don't watch TV, I sort of surrendered watching TV around about the time when I wrote the letter to Piers Morgan. Sorry, no, I didn't write to Piers Morgan. When I wrote the letter to the Mirror, I gave up watching TV. And I've said before, I didn't give up TV because it's rubbish. I gave up TV as part of my self-development because I didn't want to have an addiction to a certain TV show, soap opera. That would mean if I needed to be somewhere at a particular time in the day or in the evening, I couldn't be there because I need to watch this TV program. And I know that people will say, oh, but you can record it. I'm sports mad and I like to watch live. I don't want to watch highlights. I don't want to watch after it's happened. So I needed to wean myself from, if you like, from being tied to the TV. So that's why I gave up. So I've never actually watched X Factor in full. I've seen bits of it at other people's houses, but I don't know how X Factor works, the formula. But anyways, I got my opportunity to stand in front of Simon Cowell and the other judges, and I am a bit of a manipulator, but not in a negative way, in a nice way, in a pleasant way where we all benefit. And one of the things I believe that swung it for me was that back in the late 80s, I made curtains for Sharon and Ozzy Osbourne. So what you do, for those who might be listening who want doors to open for them, if you have something that is, like all right, so one of the things I said, when making one of Ozzy Osbourne's curtains, I burned one, and people find that hysterical. You burned Ozzy Osbourne's curtain? Yeah, because that happened, but I didn't tell anyone. So sometimes if you don't tell, then no one's gonna know. So right, so it's that kind of thing. So that's my dirty little secret there. I burned Ozzy Osbourne's curtain. So I made sure Sharon Osbourne was one of the judges in 2016. So I made sure when I was speaking to Tom Lightfoot on the phone, that's a senior production, I made sure to throw that into the mix. Like I said, I'm not going to go into how I ended up the full manipulation, but nevertheless I ended up on X Factor, and knowing the nature of reality TV shows, that they are not there to serve your best interest. It's for entertainment purposes. I worked on the principle that because like my superpower is that I look young for my age, and I know that Simon Cowell has an interest in how he looks. I'm not going to say he's vain, because people would assume that I'm vain just because I take an interest in how I look. I don't believe in the aging process. I don't believe in, people say when you get old this and that happens to you. I don't believe in that nonsense. So I wouldn't assume necessarily that Simon Cowell is vain. But nevertheless, I figured that when I stand before him and he asks me how old I am, which at the time I was 50, and now I'm going to be 55 this month. Right, so I knew that would make some kind of impact. And my goal in that short space of time was to make sure that he remembers me sometime. He meets hundreds and thousands of people, I am sure, or have met in his lifetime. But for me, it's not so much about impressing people, it's about making an impression. So the first thing Simon Cowell said to me when I walked in was, "You look good." Well, that was my objective. I knew that standard practice for women, short dresses, short skirts, high heels. So I went the opposite way, in full military combats and big boots. That was the look. And not only did I do that, but I also took my makeup artist with me. And I did that because I said, he was a mate anyway, and who better would I have wanted to spend the day hanging around but him. So I took my makeup artist along with me on the principle that if they're going to make me look bad, at least I look good. Because the first thing you notice about people is how they look. And so when I walked in and Simon Cowell said to me, "You look good," that was mission accomplished, right? So I played it down when I asked about, "So what do you do?" I said I do karaoke. I did not say that I sing and I play the saxophone, and but I keep it sort of like, I don't wear it on my sleeve as such. So people will see me at karaoke and they would presume that I go because some people do, some people don't. They would presume that I'm there so I can be adulated. Is that even a word? So that I could get adulation. No. The reason I started doing karaoke was so I could overcome my fear of singing in front of people. And that is where I was at that time. When I went, I was just doing karaoke. And there's a saying in the Bible that if you exalt yourself, you will be humbled. If you humble yourself, you will be exalted. So I always start from the bottom. I tell people I make curtains and I do karaoke. And we keep it there. It's for people. But for example, when I started back playing with the band, as I said, I play saxophone. And loads of people saying to me, "I didn't know you played the saxophone." And I said to them, "Why would you know? I didn't say." You see, so I think it's good for people to be pleasantly surprised, as opposed to you go blaring, declaring yourself, and then, there's no surprise factor kind of thing. So, anyway, I'm going about this the long way, but now to tell you the reason why I went on X Factor, I went to meet Simon Cowell, which is what I did do. I specifically went to meet Simon Cowell, was because I organize parties, and my parties are fantastic, by the way. And I'd recently had Jocelyn Brown as my guest at the last party that I'd done. I think it was sort of maybe a couple of weeks before I did the X Factor thing. And so what I do, I have these parties and I let everyone in for free because I love partying, and as far as I'm concerned, the best parties are the ones that I organize. In other words, that's where I'm going to have the most fun. And so if you like, my dream guest for one of my parties was Mick Jagger, right? And whereas I could afford to hire Jocelyn Brown, there is no way on earth that I can afford Mick Jagger. And so my thinking was, well, if I can go and meet Simon Cowell and maybe get an opportunity with him, he might be able to have a word with Mick Jagger. And out of goodwill, goodwill like what Piers Morgan did, giving the letter to Glenn Hoddle, that kind of goodwill, because I believe in the goodwill of human nature. I'm that kind of person. If I can make something happen for someone, I'll do it. And like I said, with these two guys, Simon and Piers walking, they just look like two regular guys, but they're two of the most influential, two of the most powerful people in entertainment and media. So they can, looking at them, you wouldn't think, just walking around like two regular guys, you wouldn't think that they can open doors and things like that for you just by looking at them. So that was, I didn't, obviously lockdowns happened, and it was only going to be when I'm ready, anyway, providing Mick Jagger stays alive, that I would, if it were possible, I would stage a party, because I tailored the party for the act. So the Jocelyn Brown party was an 80s party, and every person invited would know the song Somebody Else's Guy. And I've got the video. I'll put the link to that to that party in the description. But as said, that's why I went through all of that trouble. I paid my makeup artist £500 to come and accompany me for the day, because I wanted Mick Jagger for my party, and £500 was a small drop in the ocean. But irrespective of all of that, when I actually went in front of the judges, I was mindful to say to Sharon, I made curtains for you. And it's like, oh, really? But it's sort of like going way back in time. But the evidence, I can tell you what, even if she didn't believe me, I could have told her what fabrics I made the curtains. Jack was a toddler. I made the curtains for his bedroom. So those are I've arrived at where I'm going now, so I'm gonna have to wind up the video. But that's the long and the short of my experiences with Simon Cowell and Piers Morgan. Nothing negative to say, even though I may not support. Like Simon, I don't smoke. I see you smoking a cigarette in the article. Never smoked a cigarette in my life. If you want to know the secret to my youthful looks, I've never had a cup of tea, never had a cup of coffee, never taken drugs, never smoked a cigarette, and I don't do negativity, I don't do stress, and I pretty much live a free-range life. So, in other words, I discard people. If people don't fit in with, not that I want people to be like me, people are free to be themselves, but I don't have people around me. So for example, people who've got different ideas about coronavirus, who are running scared and saying, oh, the police are arresting people, blah, 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 they're going to arrest you. I've gotten rid of all of those people. Even people that I get on with very well, people that I've known for a long time, I got rid of all of them. And so I'm stress-free. Anyway, guys, have a wonderful morning and take care of yourselves.